Um, This is the Barker Historical Museum located at 7 Day Street in Fredonia, New York. Today is April 17th, 2001. What is your name, please?
Bradley Norris Jimerson.
And your birth date?
February 9th, 1948.
And your current address?
29 North Loop, Steenburg, 14783.
And the war in which you served?
Vietnam.
And the branch of service and your highest rank?
It's Army, but airborne. And hospital retired, I was Sergeant E5.
Okay. And how did this all start for you?
Well, after high school, a lot of my friends were being drafted. I was just getting interested in art, cartooning, whatever it was, and I was thinking of going to junior college or college. But since a lot of my friends were being drafted, I didn't think I would have been able to put the time in for that. I'd be drafted anyway, so a certain time I went and I volunteered for the service. And of course at that time I was just going to go into the Army, straight Army, and go in and get out. Let's see. I was waiting for the letter to come in, and it says when to report. It was in South Los Angeles, California, in Long Beach, and so I went down there. It was on 7th of February, 1967, and when they took me in. And so in a way I can say I was 18 when I went in, but 2 more days I was 19. So I went into the Army up to Fort Ord, California for basic training. And out in the field they had a drill instructor from Fort Benning, Georgia, asking for volunteers. And I think it was just the way he looked in his uniform, airborne jeans, airborne boots, everything else. My arm went up and volunteered. So I was in the Army, but in the future I was going to become a paratrooper, hopefully. So after Fort Ord, they sent me to Fort Gordon, Georgia for AIT. And after that to Fort Benning, Georgia, and I was going through the airborne training. And at a certain time, it was, I forget what the height of it, like 1 or 2 story tall tower you jump, and there's those lines that you're hooked up to and everything. I almost didn't want to go jump out of that tower. There was someone who quit, and it came to me that I didn't want to be like him. I wanted to be a paratrooper, and because of the way I was, it just, I think the adrenaline just came up, and all of a sudden I just already went through it, all the other training, and I made it through all that training, got my airborne wings. And then after that, was sent to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and we were there for infantry training. I was put into Company B, 2nd Battalion, 501st Infantry, 101st Airborne Division. Once I was there for training, I was, I don't know what they call it, but I was put in as a M60 machine gunner. So I was in the 3rd Platoon, and I just learned everybody and went through the training, and finally was sent home for leave. And then half of us that went out come back, and the other half went on their leave, and they came back, and we just finally got our jungle uniforms and jungle boots and all that. Finally, they took us in trucks over to the airport at Fort Campbell, loaded on C-141 jets, and took off from there. And I think there was a couple stops, but we finally got to Da Nang, Vietnam. And of course, leaving the United States in December, and this was down south, and when the back door of that C-141 opened up, it was just like opening an oven. All that heat, air came in, and it really surprised us. And, okay, we went out and we went on aboard those Army trucks, 10-wheelers, I guess, and drove from Da Nang through Saigon and up to a place which is northwest of Saigon called Cu Chi. And that was our first area. And down there we had, what they wanted us to do was get used to the weather, so we had empty sandbags to fill in, to set them around the tent barracks we had. And then they had a little, like a ditch from the ground. We had to put sandbags over that. It was a bomb shelter. But then we always had our weapon next to our bunk. And so we just went through all that training. And this, okay, this started like mid-December 67, 66. No, 67, I'm backing up too far. And then at the end of January, they were taking us back up to Da Nang, and we got on jets, and they flew us up to Hue. It's on an I-Corps, close to the DMZ line. And just as we left, that was when Tet Offense started. And we left one guy, he was Sergeant Valou. He was a small, thin guy. He was left back there to be trained as a tunnel rat. So when I found years after Vietnam, he was telling us that right after we left and Tet Offense started, our barracks and all that area was all mortar shell. It was, if we were still there, somebody would have been killed or hurt. And he was running around from tent to tent to get away from the mortars. And so that was something to find out from someone. When we get up to Hue, we went to a place called Camp Eagle. That's for the 101st Airborne Division. And we, of course, we weren't airborne, we didn't do no jumping. We're all mostly 501st Infantry, called straight legs. And so we were on search and destroy missions. We would go out in the flat land, or else we would go up in the hills and just either we march out or else a helicopter pick us up and take us to different areas. The mission was mostly to keep the enemy moving and not having to make some base or anything. So we were always moving, spending the night somewhere. There was one time we made a perimeter around a mortar battalion, and every once in a while they'd have a call and would wake us up to shooting all their cannons and whatever else they'd have. And we've gone through villages. But the thing I learned in Vietnam is you just don't know who's shooting at you, because it's there's so much. There was still more jungle. The Agent Orange thing wasn't everywhere. We'd be going around and all of a sudden we're ambushed and hit the ground and have to shoot the where the noise is coming from. And at a certain time he ended, we couldn't find anybody, and we just have to start over again. So it was, we had some guys that were wounded, were killed from snipers. I almost stepped into a booby trap, but it was bamboo spikes. And it's all urinated or something, just germs in it. And it went through my boot, but it just touched the bottom of my foot. I wasn't really, I was just starting to walk. So I was lucky on that, but it was where we were going through. You can see that the rangers have been there with their canine dogs, and they've uncovered all these other bamboo spikes and whatever else is around there. They just happened to miss that one. And so they just checked my foot and put some medicine on it, and it took off again. But the one thing as a machine gunner, I'm walking around and I'm told not to shoot until I'm told to shoot. So this one time the helicopters, we went to by a village that some other Marines or Army, whoever, overtook that area, and the enemy went across the rice paddy. And so we came off the helicopters across the stream, down the road, and we lined up across here, and we just started going across the rice paddy towards the woods. And just as we started to take off, it was all of a sudden there was rifle shooting, and then our riflemen started shooting that way. And of course, I'm a machine gunner, I can't shoot. If I shoot, I'm telling the enemy where the heavy weapon is. I know what they want to do is they get the officers, the RTO, machine gunners, anything that's one of the bigger than a rifle. So I just have to walk. And at that one place, that's where I had the reality of war, how close to death when you're walking and listening to the bullets go right by you, and you can't shoot back, and this other guy is shooting, and someone gets wounded, he's screaming, medic, and you still got to keep on going. You know, it was just a shock in a way, but we still had to do our job. So finally we got to the end of the rice paddy, and finally a helicopter came in with rockets and shooting rockets on the other side of the trees. And the rockets are blasting, and all of a sudden you hear people screaming, it's the enemy. And after they were finished, we were getting ready to go, but at that time, the reality of death is there. All of a sudden the smell of death, of the people are torn apart. It just you smell it, and then it's there. You know it. You know what it is now. And then you take off, and then we walk by them, and that's just seeing the enemy. There's a lot of times when some of our friends would be shot. We were in one area. There was a sergeant talking to this one private first class guy, and he was just talking to him, you know, go run the hut and do this, and all of a sudden shot right in the head and fell down. And you just had to watch him, and just the blood, and the guy's gone. We went through the training with him, and so it's step by step, it's just learning of war and the changing of us. I mean, I was 19 when I left, and in Vietnam I turned 20, but by the time, well, of course, I won't say I'm on myself, because it's a head wound, I was way down, but age-wise. But a lot of the soldiers that come home after their tour are 3-4 years older. If you're infantry, if you're out there being shot and shooting back, the adrenaline is always up, and it's kill or be killed. Of course, we get letters and things from home, and it helps us to relax. But once your tour is finished, you're sent home in a short time, and a lot of times the veteran couldn't mix in with his old buddies because it was such a change in life. They were going to the beach and playing music and just the things that we would have been doing if we stayed home. But now we come home, we've still got the adrenaline up, and we're listening, we have big ears. Any noise, just like an animal, you have to live with your ears open, and you're smelling for something different. And so every once in a while, something falls down or backfire or something like that, and the guys are just like in Vietnam, they hit the ground. Let me go a little bit further up ahead. I received a letter from this one woman, and she used to be a little girl next door to us. And I was sent home end of June, and my family and their family and I were going out on 4th of July to see all of the firecrackers and stuff. And of course this I don't remember because my head went. But she wrote on there that once that first loud explosion in the ground, I was on the ground, up here. I was on the ground in a ball, and my mother was down there rubbing my back, telling me I'm not in Vietnam. But I just didn't come. I was still in Vietnam. And on that, because of my head when I can't remember it, but I can now tell people, other veterans, that I've had a flashback. So I really thanked her for that. So we were, I was a month and a half down at Cu Chi, which is by Saigon. And it wasn't too rough down there until Tet Offense started. Luckily we left. But up in I Corps, I was up there for a month and a half where I was wounded. But it just seemed like that month and a half was pretty rough for me. Just thinking of all the others that had more time than me or even went through the whole thing. We had some of the guys would be found if we were in some fort or camp or whatever. One of our guys were found out in the outer perimeter, and VC snuck in and cut his throat. And so it's just things you don't know. It's a 24-hour be on guard situation. So we, when I think of it, they talk about drugs like marijuana and beer or hard liquor. A lot of the soldiers, after we go through the heavy fighting, and once it's done, you see certain people going out in different areas for to relax with smoking or a bottle of whiskey. And it's just it was so intense. There was one sergeant that used to write things down, but Tet Offense time, he was sent from one platoon to another because so many people were wounded and taken away. He had to replace one area and go back to another. It was too much for him to even to try to catch up. So we just threw that away. And it was one time we were walking through out in the field, And there's kind of like some clear trails and clear fields and other woods. And we were heading out one way, and our captain told us that we're going to turn here because there was an open field out that way, so we started to cut through the trees. And then we found out that there was a VCs up here waiting for an ambush, and we were going behind them. So they had to turn around and shoot us, and we started to shoot at them. And there was so much fighting, so much, I guess, grenades and stuff like that. We were at a certain time where all of a sudden we had to, the officers and them, they have to make sure how much ammunition is being used and how much we carry. And then they figured, this isn't going to help or anything, and so we're going to have to get out of here. And so they sent me and another machine gunner across the rice paddies back this way, and then split and turn around. They would put a smoke bomb up, and they would come, all of them would be coming across this way, and I would take this, the right side, and start shooting this way, and he would shoot this way, and then the rest of our men would come through. So we did that, and then we had to get up and take off. And then years later, and that area is where two of our guys were killed. One was killed there, and the other one was wounded but died on the next day. And I got to meet his mom. We had a reunion down in Texas, and I told her about it, and it was one of our biggest reunions. We had over 20 guys there. And she asked a friend to drive her and the daughter down to meet us. And so it was surprises. Saw this truck coming down, and she came out, and it was just something to me, because everybody remembered their son. He was red hair, white skin, red freckles, and he was just a happy guy, make you laugh. And then we met his sister, and she was dark, black hair. So that guy was half Indian and half Irish, or whatever it was. And I never knew that until I met his sister. And but that was one of those times I saw one guy. I saw him. I saw him as he came out and was killed. The soldiers who are killed, and it's one of yours, and you can see what he's doing. It's, in a way, teaching you what not to do. He was an M79 grenade launcher. He was behind a tree. He came out and shot us at the enemy. Went in the second time, he did the same. Went in. The enemy knew he was coming out, so they all aimed that way. He came out and then was killed. And when I was told to go across the field, because we're all going to leave, I was behind the four men carrying him, and his head was just so loose, and it was hanging, and I was in shock. I was like this with my machine gun. I was walking, I was staring, and I just couldn't believe it. And finally somebody told me to get going, so I took off. But, a lot of things we learn from those that made some type of mistake. And, I mean, you never know what to do right or wrong. And you just do what you're supposed to do, and all that. So, when I was wounded, it was on the 13th of March of 1968. Let's see. I found out that we started in one area, we were going through different villages. This is like a 5-day travel. And by the time we got to Way, our 3rd platoon was set forward to check the huts. We were on the outer edge of Way. And I remember one time that the sergeant told me, he was asking questions, and then he told me to just shoot one quick over the, through the ceiling of the hut. And so I did that. And then I went out and we went up ahead. And we came to where the trail ends here, and then there's a bamboo bridge over a stream. Our point man, he went up and went across there, and then he was ambushed. You could see the dust flying, and then you could see him falling. And then we hit the ground, and all of a sudden the enemy was shooting at us. And the other platoons were out in the field. They were being ambushed. We didn't know that, but we found out later. And at this time, we were just down. We couldn't get up. We kept on shooting. And this is one of those actions that people don't understand. It was just so, at that one time, Roy Jackson, myself, my machine gunner assistant, because the machine gun weighs heavy, and so we trade weapons. And just before we got there, we traded weapons. So I've got his M16 rifle. So as we're being ambushed, I look around and there's just a little hill, and probably as high as your ceiling, there was a tree there. So I ran up that and being shot at, got behind it, and then I just started to shoot, going like this in the direction of the sound. And then their sound stopped, and ours popped up and started shooting their way. And then a couple guys went over and got our point man and pulled them back. And then finally, the other 2 platoons came in, and we were just trying to get things back together. And a little bit after that is when fighting ended. I had to stop and save the last 100 rounds for my machine gun. And so we made a perimeter, and they picked a hut for the wounded. I don't think anybody was killed there, but they had a lot of wounded guys, put them in a hut. And then called in for a helicopter for, I guess they call it dust off, to pick up the wounded guys, but drop some more ammo for us. So I was over in this area, and I had to go and I had to get somebody's M16 rifle and some ammo and magazines, and come in and go back over here. And I just set that up. And there was a little bit amount of dirt in front of me, and the machine was set up at an angle. And I knelt down, and then Roy and I heard the helicopters coming in. So he says, well, I'm going to get more ammo. I go, okay. And he's just going up this little hill, and I go, be careful. And just then I went up here. Mortar shell exploded. And all I saw was a flash. And that was out. I didn't hear anything, I didn't feel anything. The shrapnel went through the eye, went to the temple of the brain. And there was somewhere in the paper it said that it was so hot that it sealed its trail, so there was no bleeding. But then after a while I was thinking that somebody was having a barbecue in there since it did that. So at this time I want to read my poem. I made this in 1988, it was 20 years after. It was where I thought I could talk better than I did back then. Okay, it's rap. Poem. I am a veteran, and what can I say, except I am airborne all the way. Now, during my tour of 67, 68, I was wounded by mortar that did not wait. Lost left eye by metal from a strong exploded shell, and was flown to Da Nang because I was not well. A doctor there said, he's out, not going back. At least not sent home, home in a sack. By chopper they sent me to a hospital ship where the doctors operate and don't want to slip. Those that patched me first cut through my skull to take metal out so I would heal well. They kept me on the ship for about 15 days, then they flew me back home, USA, to stay. In Letterman General Hospital, California State. Months of relearning because my reading was late. Then well enough to live in with mom and stepdad, like other non-vets, was happy but sad. August 68, on a wonderful day, with hospital retirement along with pay. Today I am happy and happy tears, because God gave me 33 extra years so far. And this, I get to change the numbers if the Lord gives me another year. Next year, the 13th of March, 2002, then I can change it to 34. So this won't be original until my time comes and I'm gone, and I really should say how many years ago or how much God's given me. Now the only thing is that I lost a lot of things. I lost a lot of my past memory. I couldn't talk. I knew what I wanted to say, but it's as if a telephone wire was cut, and from the memory area it would come to, well, I know what I want to say, but it wouldn't go through to my mouth. When I was wounded, I turned around and I saw that flash, and it was just like me sitting in a cave. And it was just like I was looking around and I couldn't see anything, but I could see that light from the flash. That was getting smaller. And then it sounded like someone took the valve volume knob to turn it up louder and louder. But the nerves were starting to go down this way, and then my hearing came, but it sounded like the volume getting louder and louder. And then also it was just like the beginnings of an earthquake. You feel it short, soft, and then they get bigger and bigger. But it's just the nerves going through the body. My second lieutenant, our guest, he said he came running around, and the medic got to me, and I had the straps. I was on my back, and I was screaming, and I was rolling back and forth, pulling. This is the earthquake that I was feeling. It was just the nerves finally going through where I could feel it. But I still didn't know what happened. They said that, they asked me, where are you, do you hurt anywhere? And in a way, I just couldn't understand. I mean, I could understand, but didn't know what to say. And they said that my arm, there was nothing wrong with my arm. It was just, the head injury. And so they patched me and put a patch over my eye, and I passed out. And then I woke up, and it was, when that happened, it was just like the sun was just, where you could see the sun through the trees towards the evening. So when I woke up again, I was on a stretcher, and I could, of course, it was swollen up, and I couldn't open my eye, and I could hear people whispering, and I could finally feel people picking me up, and then movement. What they were doing was taking me over by the stream. It was kind of a deep stream, and they handed me down to the guys down there, And they were carrying us wounded guys through there because if there was anybody, any enemy would try to shoot them, at least they would be below that ground level area. I remember listening to their feet walking in the water. And then they start kind of like getting faster and faster, and I could hear getting closer and closer to a helicopter. I could hear the blades going, and finally they got underneath the blades, and then I remember the wind from the blades going, just hitting right in the face and everything, and they put us in there, and the helicopter started to take off, and I passed out. And the next time I woke up is when I was at that a hospital in Da Nang, and the doctor said, no, he's not going. He's put him on another helicopter off to the ship. So they put me in the helicopter, took off, I passed out. I woke up as the helicopter landed on USS Sanctuary Hospital ship. Pulled me out, passed out, and I woke up looking at this big, hefty African-American male nurse cutting all my hair off for the operation. And I was talking about, what are you doing? And just cutting hair off. You know? Then I passed out, and next time I woke up, I was in the, what's that word, name of the room after the operation?
Recovery room.
Recovery room. And there I felt like a camera because I had all this stuff on me, but I remember just looking at other guys with casts on them and whatever else, but I'd be looking at the guys and coming over this way and look at the desk and male nurse there and the door and whatever else, and whatever the time went by, they finally were taking stuff off me. And what I can't remember is this officer came in, of course they had things on yet. He gave me my Purple Heart, and he had one of the instrumentic cameras there, and they took a picture, and I have a picture of that, but I don't think I brought that. But, it's got he's like this, and there's my medal, part of my medal, and there's me with my bandaged up head. And, I guess maybe they took I don't think I had that. I was just black and blue and swollen. Of course, I didn't know I lost my eye yet. And even when they told me I lost my eye, it seemed like whatever people would tell me would go in, and it would just like an Alka-Seltzer disappear, and I'd forget what they were telling me. So when I was better, they put me up to the next deck, and didn't have to have all that stuff on. But I do remember it was 3 shots a day, and I got to order my food, but I couldn't read, so I had to give my paper to the guy next to me and hope he ate good, the good food, not a vegetarian. But I just gave him my paper. I said, I can't read it. I can't read. So he did all that. And it seemed like I was feeling better. I would eat more. I was having some seconds, and I do remember that. And then the next thing I remember is when they said that a lot of us are going to put us on this boat in the morning and take us on land, and then we're going to be on the big jet, and then take us back home. All of a sudden, my feelings went down. I couldn't eat. I was shaking. I was afraid. They got me us over to the land, and into like barracks, hospital, very close to the hospital. And the good news from that one is the nurse coming, pushing this cart, and had all the needles and medicine. And she says, Jimerson, no more shots. That was the good news, I guess, on that. And then in the morning, they They had the C-141 jets, and we were all, of course, we all had to, stretchers, and they would take us up there, and I don't know how many, 3 or 4, 5, I don't know how many in a load, in stretcher. And we'd take off, and I couldn't eat anything. I had dry heaves, and I don't know, just the change of everything. You're being taken away from all that fighting, and then you're wounded, and then you're trying to understand things, and you're being taken away, and you're just wondering where. Finally, we got to the, I think it was Travis Air Force Base in California, and by helicopter they took us to the parking lot of Fredonia General Hospital. Ambulance came down and put us in there, drove us up there, carried us in. I think we were on the 2nd floor, and it was in a big barrack-sized building, and it had bunks. I think it was one level bunk. And what that was for all of us, was to look at others that was worse than us. So it's like this guy next to me, he was paralyzed on his arm, so we couldn't help him. He had to learn to dress himself. Another guy over here was one of those paraplegic. He was on that circle bed, and then always turn over once in a while, change his bed light. And he could move his arm, and he had a ring with a cigarette holder, so he could smoke cigarettes. And, he was an African American, and he had to go through all the stuff we had to go through. And over at the far end, where the entrance was, I was way over at the end. There was one guy who was just like a baby with a diaper. You had to feed him through the nose, and there was no wounds. Couldn't find out what was wrong, but it was a helicopter, a machine gun or something. Helicopter shot and crashed, and it was just not there. And I mean, that's the thing, is that I could move. I've got all my limbs, and so I didn't feel too bad, even though I couldn't remember things and talk. I've been trying to find the letter that my mother had from me, from Fredonia General Hospital. The nurses asked us to write a letter home to let them know we're okay. And one time my mother showed me that, and it was just a bunch of words. I'd be repeating the same thing, and it's just not really, it's kind of like this way and this way and this way. And I wish I could find that so I could use that to show, like this, if I go to speak to a school class, I could have copies and hand that out so they have a better idea of my condition. So after a while, I guess I was better, and took me out of that, but then they put me outside of the hospital building, but still in the hospital area, to like army barracks down there. And what we'd be in bunks, and we'd just have to get up in the morning, make our bed, sergeant come in, check your names, and then leave, and then do whatever we want. I had a speech therapist, and they were trying to show me pictures and see which words I knew, which ones I didn't. I guess that's mostly the work that they did on me. I walked around and I just helped people, or look at other people, look at the guys. I remember watching these guys in wheelchairs. They'd be doing I don't know what you call that.
Wheelies.
Wheelies and spinning down these. families and stuff. And, remember I used to go up in this office and then the workers would say hi, and there'd be an open desk. And I remember I'd always been trying to learn the ABCs again. I had problems with that, but I did that. So they finished with me and they sent me home at the end of June. And I was home, and the 4th of July came, and the next door neighbor was a Mexican family, and our family we started to go out to for the 4th of July. Celebration. They do almost. And so I went out there with them, and the first big loud boom, this girl, a little girl then, but she's a woman now, she sent me a letter telling me about that, where after the sound, it was just like back in Vietnam, and I was out in a ball on the ground, and she said my mother was rubbing my back saying, you're not in Vietnam, you're not in Vietnam, but I was still, it was as if I was back in the ditch or somewhere. And so I really thanked her for that, because now I can when I speak to some veteran, I can say, well, I've had the flashback. I know what it is. And because all that time I thought I didn't. Then through the years I just had to, well, they sent me to the Naval VA hospital in Long Beach, I think, and I would speech therapist there. And it did change me a little to where I would listen to their, car accident, something fell on their head or something. And just then, all of a sudden, I could feel the separation I felt. I'm a Vietnam veteran, I was wounded in the war, and I just didn't feel like them. And after a while, I stopped going, because I always thought I'd see other veterans. And later on, the VA got me up to it was up in Los Angeles somewhere, but it was what do they call it? What it was is this room, and you go in there and there's young kids, and they can't stop moving, and the people there that are trying to teach them things, because they're like they know how to be calm with these children. The children are crawling on the table, and as they're trying to teach them something. And I just felt weird there for a while. After they were finished and the children went, then they would, I would go over there and sit down, and we went through reading or anything that they would see how much what I could do, what I couldn't. And then I would have to try to write a story of, I would pick 1, 2, or 3 words and concentrate on what they mean and make a story of it. And I guess the main one that I remember is meandering. I kept on talking about something meandering. But that was another step forward in learning more. And I was still drinking beer, still smoking, still swearing. And it was when my folks wanted me to move on my own, to see if I could live on my own, because they thought mentally I might have been able to do that. So moved to a hotel, and I'm all by myself, and that's where questions were coming up. Why am I here, and my buddies are still in Vietnam? And I was looking at my ID tag, and Presbyterian was on the Cattaraugus Reservation in New York. That's the church that was on the reservation, it's Presbyterian Church. But I was wondering what that was. So I started looking, and I found a Presbyterian church close to where I was living at, and I started going there. And when they were bringing up the birth of Jesus, his growing up, and his out to preach, and his sacrifice, and dying on the cross, buried, and then resurrection. And going through the stories, and of course the Presbyterians, they have a cross, but they have a body, a model of Jesus on the cross, dead. He was stabbed and had the crown of thorns and the blood. And just to listen to the stories and look at that model, and what I went through, and what all my buddies are going to be going through, and others that have been before me, it was just learning that Jesus died to resurrect, to show that death has nothing. No, I think it said the resurrection is not a wall, but a door. And so that started me on the right road. I was really, I got home one time, I could understand, where I got down on my knees and I asked for forgiveness. I asked Jesus to come into my life and my heart, change my way of life. And after that, it seemed like everything was okay, except I was still drinking, still smoking, still driving. And then the questions came up again. God has given me this much time, which I don't know how much God has given me. But when I drink, it's shortened what God has given me. And when I smoke, it's shortened what God has given me. And so I started to, on another war, on and off, and finally I quit smoking, quit drinking. And my inside myself, I'd say, well, God has probably given me about 5 lanes wide road to be on, because I've been still trying to change, drive. And but through all these years, these 33 years, it's come the road is getting thinner. And I'm right now with a group called the Point Man International Ministry. And it's Vietnam veterans who made it through Vietnam and believe in Jesus Christ and heaven and hell, and we want to help other veterans. And once I learned about the group, and then finally starting our own Point Man ministry group in our area, I started to learn more. It's like in Vietnam, we have that point man goes out and he's checking a trail, he's looking for booby traps, anything, the enemy. But now we have a shorter road, or walkway that we have to follow. But we're following a point man. The point man is Jesus Christ. And we can get off the path and we step on landmines. The devil getting us into sin, one way or another. But Jesus always, we ask for forgiveness, and we're back on following our point man for safety and as a future. And so ever since I joined that, I'm really looking forward to meet other veterans. And I give them my testimony for my rap poem. I have been going to different schools, churches, any place I can go to give my testimony. And then I've been looking for the guys in our company. I've made contact with over 80 guys, but it's getting lower as the time goes by. Heart attacks. We just lost our captain. end of February. And he was probably 11, just 11 years older than me. But he was just like our father, taking care of us in Vietnam. Luckily, it was his second tour. He knew what he was doing. And every time we'd have a reunion, he'd be there. And he'd be, just smiling and glad to see him. He lived down in Mississippi, and he had that nice, friendly, southern talk. And his wife was wonderful. So I try to kind of support her in losing her husband. So we've had losing guys, but there's a lot of the guys that haven't come to the reunions yet, and that's another thing that I've kept up, keep making contact with them. One time I felt like quitting because nobody wrote back, nobody called. But then I got a letter from one of them, and it said that he was feeling so low, he didn't know what he was going to do, and he got my letter, and I tried to put it into like thirds. I put an airborne cartoon in there, and I put a little letter in there, not big, but a letter to talk to them. And then the last part was something from the Bible. And I would tell them about last reunion, hope to see you in the next reunion. And if you want to look this up from the Bible, look it up. But I would be using things, I would think of like the R&R, rest and relaxation. Well, I put R&R and then something in the page or the part of the Bible in there. And they'd look in there and they'd read Jesus Christ, my rock and my redeemer. So it's the R&R in there, my rock and my redeemer. So there's where it's me talking to them, a cartoon and something from the Bible. And the guy said that that's what brought him up. It picked him up right off from the floor, and he felt so low. And a lot of times he'd been trying to write back and thank me. And so, but just that there, all of a sudden picked me up. And it erased that word of quitting. And so I just think positive about it, trying to get us together. Because a lot of the veterans still have that guard in front of them. They're afraid of post-traumatic stress disorder. And what our group, Point Man Ministry, is trying to tell them is to change the PTSD to praise the Savior daily. And where I am at right now is where I thank the Lord for each moment, not for the minute or the week, but just for this moment. It's always time just would end, and that's where I'm always, I'm not afraid that I am a sinner, but I'm a sinner that have asked for forgiveness, and there's no way I can erase that word of sinner. There's no way but to follow Jesus Christ and always trying to be in His footsteps and change. That's a positive that keeps me going. I'm married. I have 3 children, and being a Vietnam veteran and having a family, and they know what I'm doing and what I say and pictures I draw and whatever else. But of course, they, like any other civilian, they don't know what a war is, what people have gone through. And so they understand me, but they just so much. If you look at the first beginning of what's that movie? Saving
Private Ryan.
Private Ryan. The first half hour, I guess it's going into D-Day. If you watch that, that is, we weren't in something that big, but once you get into an ambush and you don't know where they are and people are being hit, and, I mean, they have grenades, they have weapons, and same as us, and people are just being torn apart, screaming, running, trying to kill or be killed, and it's just, you watch that first beginning of that movie, and that'll give you an idea of what a war is. I mean, the things that in this paper said that they hired people without an arm so they could blow an arm off, and because they wanted to have it as real as they could. But even if you go through that, you still don't know what a war is unless you've been in one. And I didn't understand that before, but once you do go through a war, and the smell of it, the sound of it, the feelings of it, people behind you dropping from a sniper, or just all kinds of things. You're just always, you relax every once in a while. You know when to relax, but to be ready. And when something does happen, your adrenaline comes up, and you've got your power back, and you're going, and you're running, and what we've been taught is that wherever the problem is, the best way to get out is go into it. And so a lot of us was just had to go through it day by day. I mean, there might have been pauses of days in between, but once you go through something and you lose someone, and try to understand it, and then you have less people in your platoon. Your best buddy might have been wounded or killed, and he's gone. A lot of that, I think that is where veterans were saying don't mean nothing. Because when your buddies are gone and they have refill, the new guys come in, they're called cherries, you have a wall between you and him, and something happens, and don't mean nothing. And you don't want a friend, if he gets shot, then better him than me. Don't mean nothing. And that's what everybody had to bring up to make it. I was thinking of that before last week, a couple of weeks ago, as a Christian, where I thank the Lord for this moment, and I think of anything up ahead of that don't mean nothing. So I'm trying to use the things from the past and for now, what means to me. So the future, I don't know what if I'm going to make it tomorrow, or what's what. And so I get to tell myself, don't mean nothing. Thank the Lord for now, for this moment. And then I made a sign. I've had this for a while. I don't even know if I haven't made a title on it, but what it really is, my ideas of it is, when Saigon was changed, the name or the title of it was changed to Ho Chi Minh City. But when people come up to it, they'll still see the past of Vietnam when it was Saigon. And it's Saigon, in a way I can say it's a broken Saigon. But the word Ho Chi Minh City is the bright. And change it, people look at it from different angles. Letters change. So I wanted mostly for people, let's say in an art show, they'll come, and I mostly want people to see my art, and they will come and stop and look and take some time on trying to understand it. I don't want them just to walk by.
So you've been exploring yourself and expressing yourself through artwork since this time?
Right, it's a lot of words. You can't really tell what you went through, but with drawings, you can like, see, I can't remember everything in Vietnam because it was just like taken apart. But I've got a lot of pictures in my head, things we were at and stuff, but I don't remember what, when, and where, and stuff. But through the when we have reunions, people will be talking about this and that. Before, I knew that I was running with my machine gun. I was full of mud, tired, and my second lieutenant was right next to me saying, "Come on, you can make it, you can make it," running along. And another thing was when I told you as a machine gunner, as the guys came across the field, and I remember something else, but throughout all these years of the reunions and people talking, these three pictures in my head finally were together. It was just before we ate, and we ate lunch, and we took off, and we came across the trees, ambushed, fighting, and then out across here, and then coming, and everybody was gone, and we had to take off. But on the way over, I fell in the mud and water and stuff, so I was really heavy and mud, and so that's why I took off and running, carrying machine gun and mud and ammo and whatever else. I guess I needed my second lieutenant to tell me, move, move, move. But through the years, I've learned to just have an output when you have a reunion. Talk about things, but don't ask questions. Because when I first started, I couldn't talk very well, but I made contact with one of our sergeants, and right away, do you remember this? How many guys were killed? How many made it? And blah, 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 blah. And it just, it was just like, oh, what's this? He didn't want to remember about all that stuff. He said, well, I'm kind of busy right now. And he talked to a sergeant in California. This was when I was living in New York. Talked to a sergeant in California. He called me and said what I did to him. And so now I've learned just to, like, we have a reunion, we'll talk, we'll have an output. They'll have an output. And you just listen and try to remember things, or I take a little tape recorder. I'll play that after the reunion so I can, because I still have a short memory problem. But each reunion, like we would have every other, like the second year after we have another reunion, and so on and so forth. A new guy would come in, and like the handful of guys that usually go to the reunions are there. Hey, how's it going? Everything else. All of a sudden, we see a new face, and hey, how's it going? We talk to him, and so just slowly, it's more and more coming in. And the thing that inside me is the brotherhood. Like in my past, like when I was on a reservation, when we moved to California, I was a Seneca Indian. Moved to California, I was trying to be a Chicano. And I changed schools and had to be like a surfer. I went in the Army, I was up, and then I had to be myself because everybody was the same uniform, didn't matter what skin you had, but you really had to act the same. And what really changed me was my first learning of the African American down in Fort Gordon, Georgia. I was just like, looking was like half and half. And it just, I'm glad where I was sent and learning and meeting all these people. Herbert Williams, he was such a wonderful person. He was killed in his last month. And he was already wounded, sent home. He was sent back to get an unfinished tour, and he was killed last month. And when I found out about that, I made contact with his sister, and I keep contacting them. But I still see him. Like in Vietnam, and we're all walking around tired and sweat and just trying to make it during the day, and I'd be passing by him and still give you that smile of his. He'd twist his helmet one way or something, and he'd bring you up, he'd give you a big smile, but you know, his name's on the memorial wall on the west wing. Most of our guys are on the east wing. And through the years, I'm learning of the guys that were killed. I've made contact with some of the parents, and of course some of the other parents don't want to make contact, so I respect that. I just wanted to make contact with them in respect of their son that I served with. And so every month, mostly in March, end of January, January, during the Tet Offense, to March, it was, most of our guys were killed. March was the most company. But I can think about it and be sad and things, but I just pray for them and their family, and if they have children. But then I have to concentrate on the guys that are still alive and are still afraid to come out to see someone. The first time we had that big reunion down in Texas, a lot of guys, they didn't know who looked like what. Big change because we were all really thin, and we come up there and look at somebody, no hair. I think it all came down here, beard, mustache, and stuff. I don't know who that guy is. And you start talking, and they say who they are, and still they sometimes who is he? And they'd say, oh, I was at Epstein Gang Grenade Launcher. And all of a sudden, it's putting those together. Oh yeah, you're in the second platoon, blah, 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 blah. And it just blends. I think that's one thing of reunions, is that we have the 18, 19, 20-year-old face of our buddies. But then when you go to a reunion, you have a new face. In a way, it covers that one from the past. And so you have a better memory area of the guy. And so we just have to send our letters out to them and say, we're going to have a reunion, hope to see you. My wife, on our computer, she puts copies of the pictures from other reunions, so they'll look at the groups of guys and we're like, hey, having a good time. And I think that's what gets them down. One more time. On our reunion that's coming up in July for our captain, I want whoever comes, I want us to be in this all one group, and we're going to have our last roll call. And in a way, I want the guys to be in with this, so I'll have their last names with me, and I'll call Smith here, Johnson here, whoever's there, they'll be answering that, and the last one will be Captain Nichols. And on that third one, I'll have a guy stand up and say, sorry to say, Captain Nichols not with us anymore, and because he passed away, and we'll have a silent pause in memory of him. and then after that, then we started something else. But I thought that would be something to have the people, the guys together, and have a feeling that you're mixed in with that. And especially with us, a lot of them, they have the memories of Captain Nichols in Vietnam, or Fort Campbell in Vietnam, and he was, just top number one, a good captain. And at the reunions, if they haven't never met him there, then they're going to miss him. Meeting him again, how he was, just such a wonderful person. Let's see. There's an RTO radio telephone operator who was with Captain Nichols. He was coming from Florida to St. Louis, Missouri, to reunion. He was coming to meet Captain Nichols. Captain was gone, but he's still coming. And he told me, "You stay in shape." He was at least meet me. So it's there's always a thing. I just don't know what's going to be, who I'm going to be talking to, or anything else will come up. So during the time from now in the reunion, I'll be along with the Playman Ministry, Brain Injury Group, Race Unity, Sons and Daughters of Touch, some other groups. But I'm pretty busy. I'm trying to meet other people. If they're new, I'll tell them my testimony. I'll give them a rap poem. When I went to my captain's funeral, I took a New Testament Bible. It's from the Playman Ministry Group that we hand out to veterans, or whoever wants to take it, hand it out. But next door of Nichols' house, I met a Marine, and he's a Vietnam veteran. We talked, and I got that one. When I was going to leave the house, I just saw that. I grabbed it just in case I can, and I had to give that to somebody, so I gave it to this group. Because they've been helping each other. And Captain Nichols and him worked at a post office, so it's so close to him. Captain Nichols isn't going to be there anymore. It's just part of his life. But I gave my testimony to them, and I try to keep in contact with them, and hopefully they can meet again. Just so many things. And of course I have to try to also remind myself that I have a family, that I should also still be mixing in with them. I have two sons, they're off on their own. My daughter, she graduated from high school and she's working. And part-time, and summer she'll be working rides, and she was working during the summer over there. And I'm just always glad to be someone who can say that I've been in the Army, I'm airborne, got my airborne wings, I got my combat infantry badge. Nobody can get that unless you go through a war. As a Christian, I try to live the love thy enemy. I've met Vietnamese people. Just friendship there. Still trying to understand each other. But there's a lot of things from the Bible that really keeps me up, keeps going. And especially something to look forward to, Jesus is going to return. And myself as a believer, tomorrow's my mother's 4th year in memory that she passed away. And my cousin had asked her if she has asked for forgiveness, and does she believe in Jesus, does he heaven and hell and stuff. And she said yes. And so to me, I know that I'm going to see my mother again. And that's another thing. When I did turn around and that mortar exploded and I saw that flash, it made me think of what they were saying and how fast Jesus is going to be in. It's going to be as fast as you blink, or maybe faster. The mortar came in and exploded, and I saw the light, but I didn't hear the explosion, but I saw the light. The light is so fast that when Jesus comes, it's going to be faster than that light. And that's, I repeat that to myself, so I would keep myself on that trail and following our fleet man. So I'm just going to keep doing some art projects, and because I've had all these ideas and I'd sketch them and put them in a box, and I just never get to them. And I've always wanted to be able to have things when art shows come up, I can take it and put it up as a Vietnam veteran and meet people and hand out the rat home. So, I think that's about all right now.
Have you been back to Vietnam?
No, I haven't. I talked to a worker that's for Dave Reaver. Have you heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
He's an evangelist from Texas. He was in a PT boat, and he had a phosphorus bomb. He was going to throw it up on the land, burn a bunch of things in his way because they were going to go on land and then go get some enemy and whatever. And as he went like this to throw it, either something went wrong with the timer or a sniper shot at him. If that, whatever made it, it exploded and it went all over his body, and he lost half of his face and his ear. I mean, he could look and you could see his heart beating. He jumped in the water and that white stuff was still burned. It burns all the way until it disintegrates. But he still, no matter what's going to happen, he said that he still believed in God, and he's going to whichever way. And their group goes to Vietnam once a year, and I'm thinking about if things work out, I might go with them next year. Money, money. But I, as a Christian, I would like to go back to Vietnam. I mean, I've thought of that before as myself to look to bring things back, but there's not that much that you could bring back. But as a Christian, to go for the Lord and learn, of course, what they do. They know what to do. I don't know what to do there. But I'm going back to Vietnam.
Where do you hold most of your reunions? Is it in New York or?
Every odd year we have a reunion wherever we can have it for company day. We've had it down in Texas, Washington, D.C. We've had it over in Nevada, and Texas 2 times, and some other places. But it just depends on where we pick. At the end of the reunion, we'll say, okay, where's the next reunion? But every even year, Fort Campbell has an open an open fort for anybody to come from the 101st Division Battalion, or whatever, World War II, Vietnam, to come over and they look at the fort, look at the new weapons, and talk to people. And, stuff like that. So whoever can make it over there will have known. So I try to make each reunion as much as I can. So I've been down to Fort Campbell. We'd either place a hotel in whatever the place is in Tennessee, Clarksville, and then we drive up to Fort Campbell and have a reunion. So it just depends on who will say, oh, we'll have a reunion. Or else Fort Campbell, so whoever can make it there. But we're always trying to get the things going and keep the information to the company big. And so I meet all kinds of veterans that are like at Fort Campbell. I'll meet people that are in something else, maybe the artillery or the helicopters or something, and it's just something to talk to them. And you see guys walking around with have an artificial leg on or an artificial arm. I have my artificial eye. A lot of times people don't know that I lost an eye if I don't tell them. And but in this little illustration on letters, I put a circle with an eye patch, a dot for an eye, and a smile, and then little lines for a happy wounded veteran. And I was going to meet this one guy from somewhere Tennessee. He came to the Union, and he was looking for someone with an eye patch. So I think we walked past each other a couple times. I didn't know what he looked like. And finally, or let's say, oh yeah, I'm with the North American Iroquois Veterans Association. This is all Indians from any war. And we get together and we learn more of what we've gone through, and we go. I think this is my second year with them, and I'm learning about myself as an Indian. I'm learning more of the powwows. And you just go to different areas, like there's a powwow in Rochester or something, and then the people there invite the group, the North American Iroquois group, up there to be as a color guard, and in the beginning and the end. And so we wear the uniform of the group and go up there and we do our stuff and we meet people and just something. I mean, we also, like anything else, we just lost a member of that. It was a Korean veteran. Even though he was down, he went to one powwow and everybody was trying to help him and stuff and do things. And I took a picture of him, or a couple pictures of him, and when I went to his funeral, I gave his wife the pictures I had of him. And, but our group still tries to keep doing things as veterans, because we're proud of what we went through. We didn't know what we were going to be into. We didn't know where we were going to go. I didn't know I was going to be a machine gunner, and I didn't know I was going to be a paratrooper. And so whatever we went through, and whatever we was awarded, we're pretty proud for that. There's like 3 titles on me, only because it's as a Christian, And I thank the Lord for that second chance in life. So I'm a Christian, and as a Vietnam veteran going to war, I'm a veteran, and then Seneca, Indians on the bottom. But it's just because of the, what I've gone through.
Yeah.
And when I grew up as a child on a reservation, I was not taught my language. Cattaraugus Reservation had Lieutenant Thomason in school, and that's where we were taught the English, and not where they had to stop speaking their language. So my grandmother, and then my mother, and then my sister and I went. And I was living in California for about 10, 15 years, something like that, coming back. Because of all of the propaganda TV shows of the Indians, I thought we lived in teepees too. Used to live in a longhouse. So I was just like, I was coming back, and I was learning about myself, and even though in a way I'm not, I don't have the language, I don't have the, like if you listen, you go up to a Mexican person, and they know their language, and they speak English to you, you can tell. I speak to other Indians that know their language, and they speak in English, and you can tell theirs. And me, I just speak English, and just speak the way I speak. So.
Did you ever notice, I know like there's different times in American history when African Americans were treated differently in armed services, especially during some of the wars. Sometimes they were the troops sent in first, or I remember reading an article where they had to bicycle across Montana. I mean, just some odd things. And did you ever experience that? Any sort of prejudice or different treatment or anything along those lines?
In my memory that I have is the friction of race when I first went in. I mean, that was African American buddy that came standing in front of me and saying, hey, nigger. And I thought, who's he talking to? It was just a wall behind me, so I figured it was me. And it was a shock, and especially from, African American calling me what people call them. And then Herbert Williams stepped in between us, and he says, well, you didn't call me a nigger and fight before he was protecting me. And after time goes on, as we go through the training, and we learn more about each other, and we find out we're going to go to a war, and we want to come home, we got closer. And so there was less friction of race between us. And then the thing that I was thought of, though, is once you're wounded and an African American is separated from us, and he's going to go through areas which have, he's set to the side, and other races people are taken care of, and they might be whatever. Then he's sent home, and then he's back to where he was with that problem. And he's away from his family that were so close. And that's one of the things that in the beginning of our unity, the reunions, first it was just, I guess the only difference was we had the Mexican, and the Indians, and the Caucasians, and then finally, African American guy was in the company, and another one comes in. So the unity was getting back, and that's what got me, the strength of it again. But of course, we have to separate and go back, and if there's any problems and racist or something like that. But, we had a little friction at the beginning, but we got together, and there was no stopping the skin. You learn of the person. He's trying to help you, and he's making you laugh. He's just so much between us, and then we lose them, and I just it's hard to know that you're not going to meet him again, unless he was a Christian.
So as you counted on each other for survival, the lines of your skin color disappeared, really,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and it didn't really matter.
Right. Roy Jackson was African American. Machine gun assistant. We'd be protecting each other. We want to go home. He's married. I'm not. Ambushed, and we hit the ground. And at that time, I felt like a little grasshopper. And a lawnmower was going over. Luckily, the ground was like this, where they couldn't get to us, but we could. The grass was falling down around us, as just like a lawnmower was going over us. And I remember just pushing my face up against the ground, trying to get deeper. And then a guy comes up and he starts shooting, and gets a guy who gets us out of that. And he's African American. Another time it's a guy I call Rusty, who's another machine gunner. He gets us out. And, it doesn't matter what. Are you white? They don't ask. We knew each other. We were so close, and we go up there to fight and help and all that. I think of myself as a machine gunner. I mean, I had that feeling that I couldn't shoot until I'm told to shoot. But my job was to, if anything happened, if there was trying to overtake us, and that's where machine gunners would work to save our buddies, to get us out of it. And so that was my job. I looked forward to it, and it didn't matter who they were my buddies and the family, and just so close.
Must have been difficult to go back to a society where, you didn't rely on each other that way, and there were race problems. Did you experience any of that when you came back, or?
Myself, I was, when I came back, I was a lower IQ. I'll say as a Christian, I came as a child. I had to relearn to talk, and I was mostly, it seemed like I was at a tennis game, I was just listening and listening and listening and listening. I couldn't speak. And even after the years went by, and my wife and I moved back here to New York, I still had problems, and one of the members of the Point Man Ministry group, and he always brings up when we met, I could hardly talk, and it was just, and after hearing of my head wound, and we were just glad we made it.
Mm-hmm.
But now, through the years, the positive side of living and wanting to help people, and I'm taking wanting to go to places to speak and give my testimony and everything else. That's what has built up my way of speaking. But it's through all these years of learning from my buddies of what I've gone through, and even like the brain injury group, people have been in car accidents, and one guy was in a motorcycle accident. He was like a vegetable, and it was his wife that brought him up again, and you just have to start over. And I don't know, I'm 53, but I don't know how old I am up there. Like, I do still feel younger. Arthritis coming through. But it's just the positive feeling. When I can help a veteran, when I can help someone, a positive feeling of life, it's just something for me to go and to do. So I'm always trying to thank the Lord for the new day, and see what he has for me. I just keep going.
Well, we're out of time, actually. Is there any last minute quick thing you want to add in or say?
I'm just glad to be able to hear about this and to come and to put out my history and anything else that I don't know who this helped, or I'm just hoping that some of this will help someone. So it's just a good positive feeling. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Well, thank you.